Good evening, everyone. Can we take our seats, please? Are we quorate? We are. Okay.
The chair's just asked we take our seats, please.
Dylan. Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm the new chair of this forum, as Councillor Shaw is no longer on the executive. Consequently, I've taken over this role. So I'm very pleased to be working with you on this very important topic. So look forward to working with you over the next year. Apologies?
None, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Minutes. There were minutes from the 29th of April. I rely on somebody who was here at that time to tell me whether they are correct, please. Can somebody confirm that? Yeah, thank you, Stephen. We have no matters arising. Yeah, of course, yeah. Could you put your, so that gentleman can hear, yeah.
Can I just check on page 7? I did raise the issue really to do with what was coming up in the task and finish group about the nighttime buses, and I know that Sistra and Stephen Lake went away to look at it further, because I think we wanted to see whether any of the buses, especially on the weekend time, could actually extend further up to about 2 o'clock. I think we're looking at, so I'm not quite sure what's happened.
Okay. Does anybody have an answer to that? Can we get an answer and send it round the committee, please?
Noted now the specific question. I didn't pick up that it was specifically at that until 2 o'clock. So I'm just noting a question to give an update about nighttime buses, whether they could be extended up until 2 o'clock.
Until 12.
Mm-hmm.
But I wondered if it would go, any of them would go further.
Okay, up to 12, and then 2 o'clock. Okay, yeah.
My second question, please, if I could, Chair. On page 12, and it was on the issue of Osborne Road, the flooding, and I asked whether the design solution had been found to stop it happening again. And it says the chair responded that officers did not have a design solution this evening and requested that once there was one, the plans would be sent to myself and Councillor Isle. Yes. I haven't seen anything.
That has not.
Oh, sorry, it's my phone.
Yeah, that has not been completed. It's on a sort of list of a number of sites to be investigated. That's still ongoing. It's not been completed.
The only thing I would say on that flood, the last really bad flood, was quite a long time back now, and we would have expected, residents would have expected, councillors would have expected that a solution would have been found by now.
So the solution is not in sole gift of the council, so we need to liaise with Thames Water, who are the asset owners. So we've made several attempts, and now we've got 2 contacts, two sort of named contact at Thames Water that we sort of continue having conversations with. So there's some progress, but we've not got a solution yet.
Okay, perhaps we can bring it back to the next meeting, Chair.
Sir, can you send it round? That would be quicker, wouldn't it? But obviously, if we're waiting from the Thames Water, I appreciate that.
They had to give them justice. They were going through a lot of turmoil in the recent months.
Okay. Well, we'll try and get that for the next meeting.
Yeah.
I believe Denny is on.
Yes. Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to add to Councillor Stevens' point regarding night buses. Can he specify exactly what bus services he would expect? Because there is some nighttime buses, but if that would help sustainable transport team to identify buses which actually needed for nighttime economy and to actually boost nighttime economy. If we can be a little bit more specific, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Sorry, I can't answer that. I'm not an expert on the bus system, and it's really down to the bus companies together with Sistra and Stephen Lane to see where the demand is coming from, and really to serve those areas outside of the town that are not, to encourage population, especially the younger people, to come in. We're doing a lot because I think we're limiting the cost of the bus fare to £1, I think. So that's a lot of, that's a good way forward to encourage, but it's not encouraging necessarily late night attendance for certainly for the nighttime economy.
Definitely, Councillor, I agree 100% with you. My point is more about that if we do, let's say, survey, there will be no demand. And we need to understand a little bit deeper where people would like to go and where people coming from. And that's maybe the core of the challenge which we are facing, because we don't know where people live and where people want to go. And that's the reason why I just wanted to discuss about that. Yeah.
I repeat, it's down to bus usage. I don't have that data, the bus companies do, and Sistra possibly will have. So I throw it back to the officers and to the bus companies to look further into it.
Thank you very much, and I noted that, and I will discuss further. Thank you.
I just wanted to come in on the programme that we're doing around the summer campaign. I'm trying to bring people into the town centre. So we're offering £1 bus fare until the end of August. So we will be able to get that data from Steve Lane around where we've had that usage, because I'll need to claim back the money through that. So we'll have a data source that can focus on where we know people have come in and where they're going home again. So that's running until the end of August. So hopefully that will be ready for the next meeting.
Else on the minutes? No? Okay. Are they agreed then with those questions? Everybody okay with those? Okay. Obviously, we've dealt with matters arising. Remind members about disclosures of interest and also any urgent business. We now move on to item 7, which is the housing. Sorry, I seem to have a problem with my mic. I'll turn it off.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the board. My name's Claire Asprey. I'm Head of Housing Strategy and Development. The paper we have for the group as an update here is very much a work of partnership across a variety of fronts, all related to housing, sitting across, well, 2 or 3 different parts of the council. Actually, ironically, none of them in the housing department anymore. But so I will go through it. It's the combined work of 4 of us, at least. And therefore, if anyone has very detailed questions about a bit that's not related to the bit that I wrote, I'm very happy to take those away and come back to you, but I will do my best to deal with any queries because I know a bit about all of these areas, but I'm not necessarily an expert in all of them. So yeah, basically we've covered a variety of areas of our work around energy efficiency, climate change issues and net zero and housing. That's both in our own housing stock, so public housing stock, and also in the private sector among owners and tenants. In terms of our own stock, I think it's really worth emphasising that Luton Council is very much ahead of the game in terms of the quality of its council housing. We're in the top 10 nationally for EPC ratings for our council stock. We've done a lot of investment in terms of the quality of our stock, and we've got a lot to be proud of in that sense. In some ways, we're the victim of our own successes because a lot of government funding that's coming forward for decarbonisation, we aren't eligible for because our stock isn't bad enough. So we do face a very significant challenge about decarbonising stock, i.e. taking it off gas, whereas we've actually done a lot of the other remedial work around the quality of the homes and the fabric first approach to insulation and so on. So yeah, there's a lot to be proud of there, but we are sometimes the victims of our own success in terms of the investment that we've made. That's not to say it wasn't the right thing to do. It absolutely is. And you know, I'm sure many other councils look at our stock with a certain amount of envy. I'm not saying it's all perfect, but certainly as a tenure, it's the highest EPC rated tenure of any tenure in town. So as an average, is the council stock. So, you know, that's something to be pleased about. The other thing that's going on in our council stock at the moment is in anticipation of regulatory changes. There is an expectation from our regulator and from the Ombudsman that we have a much more nuanced and detailed understanding of our own stock, and we are moving this financial year to do 100% stock condition survey that builds on our existing stock condition information, which is mainly based on archetypes of different homes. That's going to get a lot more granular and a lot more information, and so that will help us really fill the gaps that we have in any knowledge that we have around EPC ratings, particular issues of stock quality, and with the additional focus of AWAB's law coming into play this year, which is focused on landlords' responsibilities towards tenants where damp and mould is a problem. That's going to very much mobilise any activity that often interplays with issues around insulation, cold homes, and then the energy efficiency improvements that sit around that. I think that there's a broad perception across the sector that retrofit is a recognised way of dealing with challenges that are brought up through AWAB's law and stock condition improvements in general. So that is something we will be expecting to see more of. Just a reminder that we have been a partner from the very beginning with the HACT retrofit credit system. We were in the pilot phase of that, and we have continued our work with that. It's, as far as I'm concerned, it's sort of like free money because it basically recognises where we're doing improvements that save carbon, we can sell that carbon on to other organisations that are looking to offset. So actually, it's money we were planning to invest anyway, and it generates income. Not huge amounts of money, but it's a 20-year term of income, so it's long-term trickle income. And I think there's some really good things we can start thinking about doing with that sort of targeted income around retrofit. Just to say that on our new housing, in terms of the council stock, we have now got planning permission and are about to go to tender for our first 2 sites that have been designed as net zero from scratch. That will be on site later in the year, and yeah, all of our new design brief and the work that we've got going on is now, when we're originating those designs, they're coming through on our design brief, which is net zero, and the guidance and net zero design brief are both available on our website. And we do that so that developers who want to come and work with us can see the standards that we're looking for. So with that tender, we are putting a huge amount of emphasis on quality and experience of building to low carbon standards as part of the evaluation mechanism for that tender. So it will be based on, you know, we're trying to encourage local companies, but absolutely we're looking for companies that have good experience of low carbon builds to start with that, you know, our first sort of full net zero schemes. So that sort of covers most of the council housing stuff. In terms of private accommodation, we have very active work supporting local households, particularly low income and vulnerable households, to access the funding that's available nationally for home improvements. We have recently been successful in being part of the Portsmouth City Council Consortium for Warm Homes Local Grant, which is the latest national scheme for investment. In fact, we got more than we asked for in that round. And Shabir and my team is busy lining up all the referrals that we've got, and that can include park homes. So as I know, we've got a big focus again on additional park home investments there. So we do monitor the number of homes getting an improvement, but we only get those from the very small number of onboarded approved installers. So there's a lot of work going on, we know, that we don't have oversight of. That's a challenge for us in terms of data and tracking what's going on, because Ofgem knows, because a lot of that funding comes through energy company obligations, but they don't always tell the local authority where the works are happening, which is a bit of a frustration. But, you know, we collect some information, but we don't have a full picture. And the other area of work that's been going on that you may have seen, there was certainly press coverage of, and we had media involvement with BBC around where we have really seen the impact from poor quality installers working through those national schemes, with a case study that was from Luton that was featured on the BBC. As a result of that, Luton and Spear from Luton was asked to represent local authorities at the parliamentary committee looking at this issue, and did a really great job in representing the kind of issues that we see for local authorities, where we don't pay for the work, we don't commission the work, we have no obligation, or, to be honest, no position to oversee the works. And yet when the works go wrong, we're the first people that our residents come to, rightly looking for some support. And so, yeah, there are some very inherent problems in the system around that, particularly with the way that those works are validated and overseen by Trustmark and other accreditation bodies. And I think we've been doing a lot of work to promote that. We have support available on our website for all residents to say, here's how to pick a good installer, here's how not to get taken in. We've been working with our comms team, with building control, with trading standards and others for a good 2 or 3 years now to support that work, and obviously liaising with members on that. So that's the other thing, is to make sure that we want to encourage people to take up money and have free home improvements where they can. And in order for them to do that, we want them to have confidence in the quality of the work that will happen. And therefore, it's really on us to make sure that we're trying to encourage that good installers and deter bad installers. The other piece of work that we flagged in the report was around the energy efficiency survey, which is just sort of going through sort of final drafting stages at this point now. We're trying to get out to just hear from people around what works have been done, what are the things that motivate people to do work to their home, what are the barriers that they face and any concerns, and that helps us to then target future work and get a rounded understanding of where people have done those improvements. You know, it will be, as you know, looking for support around distributing and promoting that. It'll never be 100% coverage or anything, but we just want to get a feel for what we can find out. And then finally, the report covers enforcement activities in the private sector. Our private sector enforcement team has done really well in the last year or two, securing funding through health services. Firstly, for the extension of the minimum energy efficiency standard proactive work, where we went out and actively looked for homes that failed on the minimum energy efficiency standards, and then went into enforcement and forced landlords to do those improvements. And we've also had some additional funding around a Healthy Homes project. And whilst it's not explicitly linked to net zero and energy efficiency, a lot of the problems that we see will incorporate issues around cold, damp homes, which are, you know, one of the most significant health issues in terms of private rented sector stuff. So we've got funding from the government department, but also additional funding through public health for tackling road landlords, and that's funded things like our landlord forum that happened a couple of months ago, and some of the proactive work that's going on to support landlords. Unfortunately, what happens is when those funding streams come to an end, we lose the additional staff and the resource around that, and it comes back to just the work that we can do from our core team. But whilst we get the additional funds, we do ramp that up and do as much as possible to extend the work that we do on enforcement and encouragement of good quality homes. So that's sort of a general summary of the work that's going on all across the system so far as possible. I'm happy to take any queries, and yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you, Claire. Are there any questions? Yes, Stephen.
Good report, but I do have a few questions. I have a comment to make. Can we be careful when we're using some terminology without explaining? So HACT, I had to look it up. And the same with Arctica. So probably not just me, but other, maybe other councillors also are wondering.
That's a fair point.
Were. So
Yeah.
I mean, I know what they are, but I did have to look it up. So that was the first thing. The second thing is with regard to where you've got 2,217 properties were reviewed, and you've got basically 162 had some work done on them. Does it mean to say that 2,055, the remaining ones, didn't have any work done them or didn't need any work? What does that actually mean when we just take those figures of 133, 21, 5 and 1, which have had work carried out? What about what does that remaining one? What's happened, if anything?
That's a good question. I will take that back for Joe Nelson to pick up specifically. But I think what we were doing is we were looking at properties that we knew that were rented, that where we think they were the last EPC was lower than expected. So it may be that some of them didn't need that enforcement, because that was just a review, and where we've enforced, then you can see some of those activities. But I will take that back so we can clarify those numbers. Thank you.
Thing is with regard to the cowboy installers, if I could turn them that way, is there any way? I imagine there isn't any way, but anyway, that we could, for any work that's been done, especially on these terrible grey installations that have carried out around the town, spoiling the road, spoiling the natural look of the streets. We won't find out, I presume, into the near future whether it's going to fall apart, whether damp is going to get in between. What would we suggest? Because going forward, are we going to suggest that that kind of work would need to have planning permission to be done? Because I think that probably should be part of the issue. But what about the other ones? I mean, if somebody's next door to one that's had the work done, should they report it? Should it be looked at to see whether it was carried out properly? I mean, because I think we're lining ourselves. I know
we know there are thousands of installs out there that are problematic. Yeah, no, that is a real problem. So it doesn't need planning permission, but it does need to be notified to building control through competent contractor. So we have had some data in that indicates that there are hundreds of installations that have not been notified to us and therefore are in breach. So what would likely happen? Well, we could enforce against all of those and ask the householders who we know are already on a low income and vulnerable to pay for that. At the moment, we're not choosing to do that. At the point when any home comes for sale, they're probably going to have to resolve that as part of a sale process, because it would need to be regularised within building control as part of the due diligence on the sale. It's not, you don't need planning permission, but you do need building control for EWI, for external wall insulation, you do. And so if someone sees something that they think is wrong, and there are some poor installations out there, some of the major issues are around window treatments, where it reaches the roof, and whether sometimes you've got systems where the guttering is just falling into the top of the insulation and it will just blow the insulation and then make all the wall damp. There's all sorts of really poor examples out there. It's something that people can notify to us, ideally the person whose home it is, frankly. We do flag it, but we don't always know who's done the installation. And to be fair, the householder often doesn't know either, because of the way that the companies operate in terms of people who go out and sign people up and a different company comes on, and it's not always very clear who you can complain to. That's part of the problems that we have, but we can raise this Trustmark and other bodies, and we do, to be honest. Shabir's got them all on speed dial, frankly, and that we can do our best to flag it, but we are not in a position to sign off any works ourselves. And we don't have resources for that anyway, and we can't take responsibility. But also, it's about making sure that the householders know who to complain to and go to the accreditation bodies if they don't get any recourse. Certainly flag it to us, because we are interested in knowing what's going on, and we are conscious that there is an issue around notifications to building control, which absolutely is a concern.
Is there a possibility of it being a requirement to have planning?
I wouldn't have thought so, because, well, apart from anything, we kind of want to encourage people to do it. Yeah. Not that I'm aware of, and I don't know that we have any mechanism to require planning permission on external wall insulation.
Okay. My final thing, Chair, if you could. We're great. We have a number of show homes of our own, which are available, to be used as exemplars, if you like. I raised actually at one of when it came up to OSB before, that we have various types of housing stock around the town, including these terrace houses, and a lot of them in my ward, but lots of them in other wards as well. Semi-detached, which again a lot around the town, and then detached houses. And I wondered whether it was possible to work in the private sector to have maybe some examples done, brought up to the highest standard of carbon neutrality and insulation, where they could be set as examples for people in the private sector when they want to have work done, to know what is the best work to do. But I think it doesn't seem to be a difficult task to do something like that. And I'm sure there would be some householders that were willing to have their house done as one of those examples. But it would show a light going forward. If we want to encourage more people to highly insulate their homes, to look for carbon neutrality, to have a guidance on how to achieve that, and how to achieve it for their type of home, if they're in a terraced house, a semi-detached, or perhaps in a detached home.
Absolutely. And we did do a retrofit exemplar project a couple of years ago, Aberystwyth Road, which was part funded through Luton Rising and through other partners. And that was open for the public to come and visit. And we were very close to managing to do a second one on a Victorian terrace, which I was really keen to do. And then unfortunately, the funding didn't come forward for that project. And that would have been really helpful, because those are some of the hardest to treat homes. It would have been a really good exemplar project to do. I know there are sort of informal networks for people who are really into that, and they can do open house kind of examples. So some of that's about community connections, I think. And I don't know if Kat's want to say anything about the data company that we worked with on the exemplar home, who was Snug, who can do some sort of online advice. I don't know if we still have the account with them, but I think it's more, we don't have any funding to pay for any of this. So if people are already improving their existing homes and can show other people around, and we can find out about them, that would be great. But unless you're accessing funding from somewhere to do the work, I don't know where the money's coming from.
Is there something that we could look, funding sources? Because I think if we really want to try and get carbon neutrality by 2040, we are going to have to encourage a lot of the population around Luton to do more.
Oh, totally agree. We need a lot of people to do their own home.
More advice on grants that are available. There needs to be more advice on the type of work that they can do. And I think that's something that we need to give greater importance to, if I could dare say.
Thank you very much for your points, Councillor, and also thank you very much for a super report. As someone who's not expert in housing, I found it very informative indeed and extremely interesting. I just wondered if there could be any link between this idea of show homes in the private sector and your energy efficiency survey. Could that actually generate the examples and perhaps launch a shared community project where if there are these wonderful examples, kind of lead examples of people and homes that have really had good treatment, they could be more exposed. It's a sort of a communication effect, isn't it? And I know that you're really keen on community involvement and engagement. And I just wonder if there's something that is worth exploring. And then perhaps also tying it up with some sort of investment, maybe from the private sector, if it's not available from public funds. You'd have thought that actually show homes on these lines would be in the interest of builders and home improvement firms. So just one thought. Could I also ask you about the 2,217 properties that you've reviewed? I suppose one of the things I'm interested here is the scale of the problem. You're doing marvellously with the council stock, but there are all these, I imagine, tens of thousands of homes in Luton, which may or may not be of a very good standard. How great is the problem in the private sector? And you indicated that you want to go on exploring and finding it out, but do you have any sense of the scale of what the undertaking could be?
So we know that there are some poor quality homes in the private sector. We have some fairly headline results from the English House Condition Survey, and we had a further private sector rented stock condition survey probably about 5 years ago now, actually, that was a little bit more updated. So we know that there are challenging areas of stock out there. I would say that one of the things to be aware of in Luton is that 29% of the homes in Luton are private rented. So that's about 3 times as many as there are council homes. So, you know, we have some good quality council homes, but it's slightly less than 1 in 10 homes in the town. Whereas, 3 in 10 homes in the town are privately rented. No, not all of that is poor quality. There's some very good quality stock there. But there are some poor quality owner occupied homes as well. We know that from people who we're supporting through accessing grants, who are primarily homeowners on low incomes and often with health conditions. So we know that there's some stuff out there. There is some data, but it's not particularly granular, I would say. The English House Condition Survey comes out every 10 years. It only samples a comparatively small amount of homes. We can extrapolate from it a bit, but it isn't going to say, 23 in this road are really bad and 2 in this road are really bad. It's just not going to do that. That said, you can travel around the town and see homes that are in better and worse condition, and some of that's fairly obvious. But in terms of dealing with the private enforcement stuff, particularly that focuses on the rented sector, a lot of that is driven through tenant complaints because we don't have a huge amount of resource to go out and looking. That's where we get a bit of extra money. We go out looking for stuff, but otherwise we're really reliant on people to inform us where there's a problem.
There was a thermal study, wasn't there, done some years ago of the roofs of Luton. Does that give you any indications, at least, about a poor insulation and whether that would correlate with the problems of damp and general kind of unhygienic conditions?
Potentially. I'm not aware of this thermal study. Sounds interesting. So perhaps we could find out more about that. Oh, Kat.
As a matter of fact, I do. So that was January 2008, and that was specifically commissioned a flyover. So it was a market leading at the time, but that only gave us an indication of the roof insulation, nothing about the walls or other condition of that home. And I have been told at the time, because it was done before I've started, that the police had analysed the data and found some activity that wasn't particularly legal. And then we've also used the data. We've mapped it against our people on benefits. We've worked with social services, and then we did a targeted mail out, so to the homes that we thought had poor loft insulation, and we knew that people there living there were eligible for government grants, we've specifically sent them letters advising of all the grants available, and there was free loft insulation at the time. But again, as Claire said, we've not had the feedback. We didn't know, we didn't have a mechanism to monitor how many actually took that offer up. So this type, we would not be able to, we wouldn't be able to afford to do the same type of exercise at this point in time. And then technology had moved on. So what Claire, the update that Claire gave is of our best knowledge that is most current. Yeah.
So just come back to your earlier point actually about linking the survey to potential people who have done works and could and promote that. I think that's a really good call, and we will pick that up. Something that I will say that when we were, I was one of the team of volunteers who sort of like staffed the retrofit exemplar home whilst it was open to the public, and my experience of that was that we had quite a lot of people who were visiting who were already quite interested and quite often had done works to their house, and they were going, oh yeah, my air source heat pump looks like this as well, or whatever. But what was interesting is that, you know, I had people coming through the door there who had done quite a lot of activity in their own home and were looking to sort of compare and contrast. And those are the sort of people we would kind of follow up on, really, to say, you know, would you let someone come and look at your house, or what is it that you'd be willing to do? So I think that's something we can take back for the survey about where we're identifying people who've done a lot of activity. We can ask the question about whether they'd be willing to talk to other people about it, because I think actually some of those local kind of green networks were very effective at information sharing and encouraging action. And we know that there are some very motivated people who've got the resources to take the action for themselves and could be a part of the picture in encouraging those who can afford to do it. We've done quite a lot of work around people who have low incomes and are eligible for support, but then there's a whole swathe of people who could afford to do their own, who we don't see very much of, and we have fewer routes into. So that's an opportunity to sort of cover off those. And the other thing is, we wouldn't know, like they might be out there all the time getting those improvements done, but no one has any obligation to tell us about it, unless it's something that requires building control, which doesn't always. We wouldn't ever know. So, you know, it's just about, again, the messaging and the encouragement and the sort of peer support around that.
Report, are we okay to note the report? Thank you, Claire, coming along.
Thanks, everyone. Useful questions.
And we now move on to the local transport plan. Is that Denny?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Everyone. I mean, Claire spoke so smoothly, such a detail that she raised the bar. So there is plenty of pressure on me. First of all, I would like to apologize not being present at the moment, but I believe that it's really important for me to present a development of the local transport plan, which aims to decarbonize the transport. And I'm not sure if you see the presentation at the moment, because I cannot see it. And I just wanted to ensure that you can see the presentation.
You can't hear you. Can hear you, but can't say anything.
Because I sent the presentation, it should be on your screens.
Papers for the meeting as well.
It is in, people have got it in paper form, if you want to go through it.
Yeah, of course, we'll do that way. Generally, what I would like to update you is on our short-term plan and where we are at the moment with developing of local transport plan. Generally, first draft of the document will be ready at the beginning of August, and we will hold 4 or 5 workshops with stakeholders during August. This will, let's say, ensure that all suggestions are taken on board, and we aim to have a document along with supporting materials ready by 1st of September for submission to OSB, and which is scheduled by 15th of September, but of course we would like to submit like 2 weeks earlier. We would like to seek recommendation to proceed to a recommendation to actually ask executive board to proceed to statutory consultation, which we would like to have for 12 weeks, and we expected that to happen from October till December, and then we expect to have a full document ready for submission to full council roughly in spring 2026. I will just run through our work which we've done in past 8 months. We undertook pretty much extensive stakeholder engagement, during which we organized over 25 workshops and engaged with more than 300 individuals, including local officers, councillors, neighboring authorities, large employers, young people, member of publics, because what we aim is to gather as much information as possible to understand challenges and issues around our town in order to find the right solution for and how we can move from a car-centric town to more active travel town where people more walking and cycling, and that's our goal is in next 15 years. Also, I would like to add that we organize an event for young people where 4 school attended and 1 college, where we received the feedback also from them as well. And in addition to that, we promoted the transport and highways profession because young people usually are not aware of that, and we would like to encourage more and more people to focus on technical job, because we are lacking of technical experts. Also, in addition to all of that, we ran a public survey, which we received really good response of to be precise, 630 responses. In addition to that, we liaise with the local businesses and government agencies just to ensure that we are on the right path and on the right track. During that 8 months, we gather over 1,500 suggestions, which are brilliant, and we have to sift them somehow, and we use guidance from the Department for Transport, which resulting in 385 interventions, which includes various policies, programs, schemes, and projects. And this is like a core of our engagement program, which we would like to actually emphasize that we'll listen what other residents and stakeholders perceive transport system in Luton, and focus on those interventions which could help to achieve net zero by 2040. I would like to take any questions if you might have.
Yes, from anybody? Yes, Stephen?
It's actually a comment. because I've been part of the cross-party working group, as Denny knows,
Yeah.
with Councillor Hussain and Councillor Aslam Khan. So I was part of the group that's put together these 385.
4 or 5. Yeah.
The only thing I would say, because one of the things in item in the recommendations 3 is the board is to acknowledge and provide comments on the 385 interventions. I think that's a very difficult task, because I think that the this board and also OSB, when it goes to OSB, will not have been privy to the same kind of background that Councillor Hussain, myself and Councillor Khan had. And I'm wondering if there is a slightly better solution, that if you and colleagues were to perhaps go through those interventions and perhaps divide them into those that are quick win, those that are intermediate, and those that have a longer term range opportunity, because I think that it's not a simple task to take 385. It's a lot of work for councillors to go through for a start. It's not an easy thing because without that background, and I think there could be a slightly perhaps better way to present that data grouped together so that councillors can fully understand what is being proposed. That would be what I would say, Chair.
Chair, may I?
Yes,
Definitely.
Lumi.
Thank you. Definitely, I agree with Councillor Stevens, and I appreciate that it could be quite comprehensive and quite lengthy to go through all those interventions. What we are doing at the moment, we are compile all those suggestions into a document, which essentially will be around 35 pages long, which will be divided in 28 policies, and also it will include interventions and the way how those interventions will be financed. So it will have a more deeper and detailed understanding, because I appreciate that this is a little bit taken out of context. And 385 interventions has been divided in 38 groups, which has been sent to different departments, and if it's our local officers, such as environmental team, or maybe a highway team, or parking team, or any other team which might be affected by local transport plan, we ask them for their feedback and comments to those interventions, which we are currently compiling into one document and trying to create succinct document. And a local transport plan as a whole, it shouldn't be longer than 50 to 60 pages. And our aim is to be written in plain English, because we fully take on board that people are not technically savvy towards transport planning and towards sustainable transport. So we would like to create something which is easy, readable. However, we will include technical documents in appendices in case that anybody else would like to learn more about what we are proposing. So definitely thank you very much, Councillor Stephen, for your comment. And in August, we will organize, as I mentioned, 4 or 5 workshops where we'll be doing page turning with the various stakeholders, just to get once again feedback if we are on the right track. That will be even before we go on an official start sharing consultation.
Back on it.
Sorry, Stephen. Sorry, I just wanted a bit of clarification on one of the policies. It's to work with the schools to develop school travel plans to promote safe and sustainable travel. I noticed you say mode shift stars there. I just wanted to know what that meant. And my concern is really around, I mean, there's a lot of parents in my ward whose 11-year-olds are being sort of sent to schools across town, and they're having to travel on 2 buses. And I mean, is there anything in particular being done to alleviate that issue for the parents who've got children who are having to travel to school on buses?
Definitely, yes. What the Mode Shift Stars does, because this is a national-wide program, and that provides more information of how students, including staff, school staff, travel to school. What we try to encourage is that kids, children, and staff travel to school more in a sustainable way. What that means, we would like to, ideally, for all of them to walk or cycle, especially students, just in order to be more active, which will essentially have a long-term effect on their health positively, of course. And also we would like to encourage staff as well. Sometimes it's quite difficult to encourage staff because staff usually comes travel longer distance than students. However, if you ask about them, generally bus services specifically for schools, that's and especially for because we are aware of the situation that sometimes, especially when we discuss about secondary schools, some pupils, some students are not able to get into the schools which are located near their homes, and sometimes they do travel. However, we do discuss with bus operators how we can make those travel even easier for them, and we discuss even with the young people, which told us quite a really interesting ideas how we can make those journey easier for them.
Okay.
Could I come back?
Yes, on another question, is it? Because it was a comment.
No,
last time. Is it a question?
I'm not quite sure he answered my point.
Yeah.
Danny, I was coming back to the point about what is a simple and easily achievable idea, strategy, one of those 385 interventions. Let's take, for example, if we were to reroute the cycle route through the town centre and then take it on another, that's quite a simple task. If we were to have the funds to redevelop the central railway station, that is a fairly straightforward task. If we are going forward and trying to extend the busway to Linslade and then on to Milton Keynes, that is a longer term objective. and it would take a lot of funding to do that. So Mike, I come back to the point, would it not be easier to take out those interventions which are fairly easy to achieve as those being short term, and those which are medium term we think will be, because if we get the finance available quicker, and those which are really longer term aspirations? I think councillors would understand that better, and they would understand it better on OSB when it goes to OSB. And I'm a colleague also, I think, has some agreement. So what would your view be on that?
Thank you very much for your observation, and I really appreciate your comment. The way how we design and make a concept of the local transport plan is to have one simple document. However, as I mentioned, it will be followed by subsequent documents which will be more technical, and that includes implementation plan. Implementation plan is structured in three topics. First topic is like a short-term strategy, which will be 1 year strategy. Then we will have a mid-term strategy, which is going to be 5-year strategy, and that could that will be reviewed every 5 years. And then we will have a longer aspirational one, which is going to be 15-year strategy, which we are striving for, and we should allow them to happen in those 15 years period. But due to uncertainty, either funding, I mean, we faced with a lot of uncertainties in last 5 years, including the pandemic, war between Ukraine and Russia, which impact the economy. Even we struggle, almost we ended up in recession. And what we are trying to achieve is to make flexible and easy adaptable local transport plan, which could respond to those uncertainties in an easy manner, that we can achieve what we want and what we would like, but we can change approach and methodology. So therefore, we will have a short-term strategy, 1 year plan, then we will 5 years mid-term, which will be reviewed every 5 years, and then we will have a long-term aspiration, which is going to be 15 years. Because let's be realistic, we would like to redevelop Luton railway station. However, we have no responsibilities, but we have a long willingness, and we have a lot of will to redevelop. But it is, let's say, down to outside of our remit. Is that correct wording, I would say?
Thank you. You've answered the
You're
question.
violently agreeing with each other, actually. So I don't think it's a problem. Is there anything else from anybody? Any questions? No. Okay. We've got several recommendations there. Are we all okay with those? Thank you. So we move now on to Net Zero Action Plan update. Is that yourself? No, Dylan.
I'll take that, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Dylan Katawabla, Principal Climate Change Lead for the Council. I'm responsible for overseeing our Net Zero Action Plan, which is the Council's ambition, obviously, to become net zero. The Action Plan gives us an overview of the Council's departments and their efforts to, or what they're doing in their efforts to reduce carbon emissions. So I was just going to cover a few projects that we have been involved in. One of them has just wrapped up, so to give you some feedback on that as well. But I'll start off with Luton Community Energy. So Luton Community. The director. Luton Community Energy, which is Luton's inaugural community energy organisation, was registered last year in 2024, and the group was formed to help Luton maximise its energy opportunities, to also support the net zero drive and to help combat local issues such as fuel poverty and the energy crisis. Luton Community Energy has taken the responsibility of trying to look at various opportunities around the energy market, from renewable energy to simple energy advice and assistance to homeowners. In terms of the renewable energy side of things, the group was successful in applying for some funding from Community Energy Foundation for a sum of £40,000 to conduct a feasibility study into a solar PV scheme. The group sent out an expression of interest, which was taken up by 4 local organisations, and they also developed a tender process to assign an environmental consultant to come and conduct that feasibility study. That happened over the last couple of months. Scene consultants were successfully awarded the contract, and they have been working with primarily 4 buildings around Luton. Them buildings are Luton Irish Forum, the Gurdwara in Cardigan Street, Whitefield Primary Academy in Stockholm Way, and Woodland School in Northwell Drive. The technical report for the study has just been completed, and that will be presented to our directors over the next couple of weeks. Directors will then talk about the merits of the study and where to then take, or what actions to take next. We'll be able to update the committee in regards to where that has gone by the next meeting. Moving on to the Energy Doctor Scheme. The Energy Doctor Scheme was delivered in Luton throughout February to May. The scheme was aimed at providing energy support and assistance to local micro and small enterprises in the borough. It was a response to a series of workshops that the council conducted with our local business community to kind of understand the kind of challenges they faced during the energy crisis. Groundwork Heats were appointed by the council to deliver the Energy Doctor Scheme, and they focused their range of support, which had a mixture of on-site energy assessments, remote support, and light touch advice and signposting. Almost 84 organisations interacted with the scheme altogether. There was 5 on-site assessments that were conducted with local businesses, and a few of them had ongoing support, in-depth support as well. For those that received on-site assessments, it was calculated that through certain energy efficiency measures, they could potentially save over £52,000 a year per organisation. And that's 180 tonnes in carbon dioxide equivalent. So it was quite a seismic saving there that was identified by Groundworks. That roughly worked out to an annual saving of around just over £7,500 per organisation, and an annual carbon saving of around 26.2 tonnes per carbon per organisation. So one of the things that the study outlined was the barriers to participation. Nothing too shocking here. It was mainly around the cost of measures, the lack of specialist advice and guidance, and building ownership issues. There seems to be, in some cases, a difference in ambition between the building owners and the tenants of the building, and that requires a certain amount of discussion and delicate guidance, I guess, between the two stakeholders, which was something that Groundworks had identified. So the report for the scheme can be found in Appendix 2 of the notes. Hope that can be noted. And finally, to tell the committee about the Just Transition study that we have commissioned in Luton. The Just Transition study is a study looking into the barriers of participation that communities may face trying to reach net zero. It's well evidenced that successful and just transition to net zero can produce a host of co-benefits for the local community, alongside reducing climate risks. Improvements to health and well-being, local infrastructure, green spaces and community assets are all kind of key themes here. So working with the Institute for Community Studies, who have conducted previous research in areas such as Leeds and Newcastle, they found that communities have a different starting point when it comes down to participating within the net zero agenda. For Luton, it's about finding out what them starting points are and what the exact barriers are to participation. So researchers will particularly seek to understand what the particular factors are affecting different neighbourhoods in Luton and their ability and willingness to participate in the net zero transition and to make low carbon choices. And also, what are the unique place sensitive co-benefits that can be achieved for Luton for each neighbourhood if we achieve net zero? The current project will be seeking community engagement throughout August. Details will be shared once that's completed at the next meeting.
Any questions, Sinead, or are you doing the economic bit? You're doing the
Questions first.
Are there any questions for Dylan? Tom?
Forgot, and I'll keep away from the Community Energy Trust as much as I possibly can, but I do believe that everyone in this room should read the first consultant's report, because it would show up, it shows up how the council doesn't work as one on energy through some of the types of air exchange units, what were fitted in some of the schools and that kind of stuff. We need to up our act an awful lot on that. And as a council working as one on all the energy stuff. But it just shows you on the report you had earlier, I mean, Kat will remember it, the external render started from this council where we asked some questions in Belfast at a conference of a Minister of State, why he was allowing it to happen the way it was happening. And it moved on through BBC, through everything else, and became a national campaign. So with energy efficiency and stuff like that, you can, through little starts like we started at this council on that stuff, you can get stuff done nationally. It shows you. I've got a big worry now that we're very fragmented as far as net zero is concerned. We don't work as one. And I think as a climate change board, we need to find a way to join all the little bits of the council together. So if we are going to put, because the report is to the Community Energy Trust, I need to take some legal advice on whether it can be released to everybody. But it certainly shows up. One example of a heat pump must be put in a certain building.
what was turned off a week after we put in because it's so dear to run, and it hasn't been turned on since. So, you know, as a council, we need to look at different ways of doing things. We need to have a joined up approach. And at the moment, you've got probably 4 or 5 different departments all doing their own little bit for climate change, and we're not doing the joined up work, what we can do. Everything else, other people outside the council are trying to do it and joining up with people, you know, from Bedford and Central Beds and everywhere. But as a council, we do need now to up our own act. And like I say, the one time we did do it jointly as a council on the external insulation, look at the national results we managed to get by doing it. And, you know, that can happen with an awful lot of other stuff as well.
Question really. Is it on the report by Dylan? Yeah. Another comment. Okay, fine. We'll carry on.
Whilst the no problem with the general strategy and the aims, I'm not quite sure that the 2 initiatives have really delivered. And I would say that the first one, the Luton Community Energy Pathway Initiative, I'm not sure that it was spec'd properly before it went ahead, because I think some of the conclusions would have been known at the beginning. So, and it seems to be partly because of weather conditions, but generally there was no public engagement in the end, because the public engagement that was supposed to take place didn't take place. So we haven't got the public on board. So I think there's an issue there. But I really believe that the challenges and the constraints, so the limited volunteer availability, that should have been known really at the beginning. So, you know, I'm sorry to say that it's a criticism. It is a criticism because I think it's something that could have been picked up better in the specking before it took place. And I fear to say it's somewhat similar for the second one. We start off by saying the Groundwork East agreed a target to support a total of 20 businesses, but then when we go in across the page, we see that we've got 77 businesses that were supported light touch. Then we've got in-depth remote support 2 and on-site energy assessments 5. So if the target was 20, how do we suddenly get this large number over the page? And I think, you know, in the same way I referred to what took place in the other one, knowing in advance. Well, so that it said on page 79, as there's been limited delivery of similar support schemes in the Luton area previously, the majority of the organisations contacted this project were also not aware that Luton Borough Council was a go-to for energy advice. Well, that probably should have been known, perhaps in the beginning, or perhaps what Councillor Shaw has talked about. You know, it's not joined up thinking. So. You know, again, knowing where to look for professional and reputable suppliers and installers, that has been an issue all the way along, and it still is an issue now because I don't think the public still knows. So I'm sorry for the criticism, but I think, you know, it's not your hard work. I know, because the aims and objectives are fine, but I don't think it's panned out in the 2 schemes that are provided to us here.
Matt Dylan.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of each point, Councillor, yes, it was a shame that the public event was had to be postponed. That was going to be hosted by Community Energy South at the time. But after that postponement, in fact, our community directors had actually gone out and they were actually having their own conversations within external community events anyway. So we were able to encourage further participation, managed to acquire good people like Colin and other people to come on board with onto the group, which we find has definitely added a greater sense of kind of discussion and awareness, and which is great. You want to have that kind of different viewpoints coming in. In terms of the Energy Doctor scheme, I think the key thing here, Councillor, is trying to identify the businesses that actually want to engage in this type of assistance. The problem we find is, for example, we could encourage businesses to attend a focus group so we can start this discussion. The problem we get is that maybe 6 turn up, and they will turn up for that one meeting, they'll take part, and then it kind of dies down, So for us, it's not just a matter of saying, oh yes, we can help you. It's actually trying to identify the businesses who are looking for that help as well, which is why I think, well, not why I think, but why Groundworks kind of jotted down that number, because it's to kind of really show that there is appetite out there. There are businesses that really do want to find a way of trying to keep these costs down, because they're crippling their business. So there's need, there's want, there's demand. It's trying to fill that gap. And what I've found through this project is that there's very, very little resource out there for businesses at the moment, and further cut, as you know, sir, from where the public sector decarb fund has been now, scrapped. So it's difficult. We're working very closely with our economic growth team, who are fantastic. They're out there. They're really proactive with our local businesses. They've got good communications with them. So we're trying to work with them to try and see if we can enrich that conversation, especially with our local businesses, and to kind of provide them with a package that's going to be helpful. Because one thing they don't have is time. So it's about creating something that you can go, right, sign up, get involved, let's get active. And they know they've got the support there to kind of see that through.
In the beginning, I mean, which is a very reasonable target for a new, and then it suddenly comes up to a much bigger thing of 100 and whatever it is that were, there was, we're talking about going into almost 200 of, so the resources that they had is spread a lot thinly. That's the first comment I would make on that. The second thing is, obviously there is an issue, a big issue, and I can understand the issue over those businesses that are renting, because why would they want to spend the money on something that they don't earn? And is the landlord necessarily wanting to, I don't know how you overcome that problem. That's a major problem, I believe.
Okay, anybody else? Yes, Colin.
I've got 1 or 2 questions and comments. One, first on the Energy Doctor scheme, which seems to me to be a really great idea in all sorts of ways. Various savings, financial and carbon, were identified. Will there be follow-up to it as well, so that you'll know, with all of the difficulties that have been outlined, will you have some sense of whether actual savings will be made, say, by a year's time, 3 years' time, 5 years' time?
Now that we're aware of them businesses, and obviously, like I said, we are working closely with our economic growth team, they're constantly looking for opportunities in the market where they can support local businesses to try and achieve not just net zero, but energy efficiency measures to address the energy costs that they're going through. In short, it's very difficult for us to maintain any monitoring with these businesses because the funding for the scheme has now stopped. But the businesses and their details, have been logged. We are, like I said, speaking to the economics growth team. So we wouldn't want it to just finish there, and we have got other projects like Luton Community Energy and the ambitions that they have of working within the commercial sector. So we wouldn't want to shut the door, but it's very difficult to kind of see through any savings or monitor any progress from here.
Okay. I was very interested in this research project that you've got into barriers in the different communities in Luton. It sounds like a very interesting and important piece of research work, but I wondered how it might pan out in practice. And I was wondering, maybe could you unpack the start of paragraph 22, where you say this project proposes to co-develop a co-benefits framework for Luton communities for this fair green transition. What would actually happen after the actual project is finished? Where will it go to? Can you actually translate it into likely practical action for me?
Yes, I think the key thing for us here, Colin, is kind of creating that narrative. So when we're talking with health, when we're talking with education, when we're talking with our social justice unit, who's responsible for working with our communities, we've got not just narrative, we've got context, we've got some clear barriers that we can work towards with these teams. So I think that's tangibly something we can do, and it also helps frame that discussion. This isn't the first kind of research project we've conducted to looking at barriers. One of the other ones, one of our earliest iterations, was just called a strategy room. So I think the link to that report is still on there. And that was interesting because that looked to try and place people into the future. You got postcards from the future, and it tried to create livable examples where people could actually physically see themselves living within a net zero community. And the sessions, which were attended by just under 40 local people, through the feedback from the sessions, were really interesting. What people said was, for the first time, they were able to imagine what a net zero community future looked like, and it wasn't so daunting. It was normal. And I think so. This is kind of the impetus that we have behind the Just Transition report. It's about trying to not only identify the barriers, but how do we make it normal for people? How do we make it digestible? So we're hoping that this will help provide some of the gaps around that.
Thank you very much. That helps me to understand it much more. And yes, I thought that the strategy rooms project was very, very interesting. Do you imagine that there'll be something similar or equivalent, maybe to help larger numbers of people in this kind of way?
It's something that Nesta, who are the program developers, have looked at, and they have actually worked with central government and the People's Assembly. As to where that is at the moment, I'm not really quite up to date with that, but I can find out for you. But I think the key thing for us through that was it helped enhance our discussions with areas such as health, where it became evident that climate change, net zero, and the connections to health and well-being had the most impact to local people. And that was interesting. And I'm not going to say just because of that, but since then, we've done quite a lot of co-projects with public health, and we are now still doing quite a lot with public health to try and address that. And that's being a Marmite town as well, it fits in quite nicely.
Okay, to the economic part.
Thanks, Chair. Just briefly, I'm hoping everyone's aware that we've been working on a new economic growth strategy for Luton over the last 11 months. And actually, sorry, what I should have done is introduce myself, because there are some people in the room that I don't think know me. So hi everyone, I'm Sinead McNamara. I'm the Director of Inclusive Economy here at the Council. I've currently got the honour of overseeing climate change and supporting Kat and the team, but also climate change is part of our Inclusive Economy Board. So it's Inclusive Economy and Net Zero, so it looks at after 2 of the 2040 priorities. So it's a key strand of work in a new economic growth strategy. So at this moment in time, we finished the consultation last month. We are just going through the process of bringing it to Overview and Scrutiny Board, which will include presenting to members the new implementation plan, which will support the strategy itself. We are hoping after that meeting that we will take it to executive for formal sign-off on the 8th of September and begin work on the implementation plan. Kat and Dylan and others have played a key role in shaping the implementation plan. As I say, Net Zero is a key strand of that work. I've picked up some of the points that Dylan was answering around how do we make sure that we continue to engage with our businesses, and we can work really hard at making sure that Net Zero is a key strand of our account management work. We've also been doing quite a lot with our anchor institutes, who play a key role in delivering Net Zero with us and for us. So they are part of this work stream too. So there's a lot of really great synergies between the Inclusive Economy team and the Net Zero team. And it's been excellent to do more work with Kat in terms of how we drive this forward. I am hopeful that this group has already seen the draft economic growth strategy, but if you haven't, I'm more than happy to share this separately with you. For those who are on Overview and Scrutiny Board, they'll get it in the next week because the papers are submitted this Friday, but happy, as I say, to share with others outside of that group, and it will be in the public domain from then as well, but happy to answer any questions.
Specific the economic bit, not everything else. Tom?
Yeah, first I think you misunderstood the Community Energy Trust, Councillor Stevens. That's volunteer community led, not led by the council in partnership. So everything what's happened so far has been led by the community itself. And the volunteers, what are all on the board, are all from the community, not council officers. And, you know, I'm just telling you. Sean, the biggest contributor towards poverty in the town is, you mentioned all the businesses, is all the properties what are in band E energy wise. You mentioned how we'll work with businesses, but through your strategy, how are we going to work with the people what are living in those properties what don't meet any form of energy efficiency at all?
That picked up as under a separate part of the department, Councillor Shaw. So I'll pick that up with Claire and Roger around how we're progressing that and how we tie it all together, and whether it needs to form part of any of the economic growth strategy implementation plan. But I would think it's part of the housing work we've been looking at, Kat, when we were looking at that post. That would drive some of that work. Is that correct? Around how we bring forward homes and energy efficiency. It's not something specifically that sits with economic growth, but we can definitely look and make sure it is being picked up and how we bring it all together.
Basic part of it, economic growth, the people can afford to live in the properties and everything and move on. And to me, it's a major part. A perfect example is Community Energy Trust have been giving out leaflets at Fates. And on Monday of this week, I got a phone call off the Diocese of St Albans about one of these leaflets, asking us if we can introduce them to someone from Community Energy South to come and talk to all the churches in the town and the mosques and everything else about how they can move forward. So by working together, it's amazing how we can move things forward. But if we're going to carry on with a fragmented system within the council, I can't see how we could get the success what I feel is achievable in this council.
I would suggest it's picked up under the Net Zero roadmap, Tom. and how we support it through the implementation of the economic growth strategy. It's not missing. We know it's a key piece of work that needs to happen, whether it sits in the economic growth implementation plan, whether it sits in net zero, and we just make sure that we as officers work with the right people to make sure it's delivered. I think we just need to make sure it's in one of those and we aren't either diluting it or working against it, that we're absolutely delivering it. And there's that synergy there. I totally get that. And I'll make sure that's picked up. Thank you.
Yes, Colin.
Could I just ask a rather naive question? Does your strategy and your work include the creation of green jobs in Luton, and does it also link up with increased training and education, which will lead to a green economy in Luton?
Absolutely, on both fronts. Skills and employability is absolutely front and centre of our new economic growth strategy. Within the work we've been doing, we predict that over the next 7 years, we'll have at least 2,000 dedicated green jobs. But I'm more than happy, Colin, through Dylan and Kat, to share with you the economic growth strategy and our evidence base, so you can see that. So we've got the figures we've got now in terms of how many jobs and our growth trajectory and how we're going to monitor that.
We'll share that with you, Colin. Yeah. Anybody else? No? Are we happy to, I think we're more or less noting the action plan, aren't we? We're noting the action plan tonight. Is that okay with everyone? And we now move on to the last bit, which is the work programme. As you see, the next meeting is the 15th of October. Oh, we have changed the date. Yes, sorry, that date has changed. Do you know the new date? 7th. Okay.
We'll update on the.
We'll send that round to everybody. It's only been done just the last couple of days. We've had to move the date.
All my grandchildren.
Oh, okay. So, okay, Tom. There's a programme for that one, and obviously the dates of the other meetings are in there. Okay. Is there any questions on any of that? No? Okay.
Bring the terms
of reference to the 7th of October, because there are new members on it. So we'll bring that back round. Okay. And we'll make sure the young people see it beforehand. All right. So if there's anything they want to add in to bring to the committee. All right.
Yes, they meet with them.
Is there anything else on the agenda you want to talk about tonight, or can we go home? No. Okay.